Hello, everybody. My name is Elijah Desmond. Welcome back to Closing the Deal, Dental Practice Sales. I'm your host, and I'm super excited to bring on our amazing guest today, Jason Brown. How you doing, Jason?
Doing great. Great to see you, Elijah.
Awesome. Well, you all get to peek behind the curtain this episode and see what actually happens in the world of the brokerage space with selling your practice. As you know, I am the co-CEO and co-founder of Dental Pitch Brokerage, and you all want to know like what happens after we sign with you guys. What do you do, etc. The title of this podcast episode is called "The Role of the Broker: Advocating for Sellers Every Step of the Way." I couldn't be more excited to come on here and to interview you. And listen, I have not met one person that said anything outside of like amazing, compliments about you. I mean, all of these sellers that we've worked with, they have just came to me and said so many extremely positive things about you. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you. And also as a mentor to me, we work on the same team, but I got to tell you, you are like the biggest mentor. You are full of knowledge. You don't talk down and make somebody feel like they should have known this. Even though you have so many years of experience in the M&A and finance space, you're really good at educating others. So I couldn't tell you how happy I am to work with you. And I can also tell you there are so many of the sellers that are excited to work with you and are so happy. So I'm going to go ahead and kicking off the right.
Thank you, by the way. That was very kind of you.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, we kick off these the same way with all of our guests, and essentially, it's all about the walk-on song. As you know, when we bring the sellers to the events in a confidential setting, they get like the song of their dreams, because they're selling their life's work when they walk onto the stage and all the buyers are clapping. Well, let's just say for you, Jason, put yourself in their shoes, or even for yourself, if you were to go and ultimately sell what you have been working on your entire life, and it's like the ultimate moment you will never forget. Can you tell me what the song is that you're going to walk on to?
Well, I can think of a lot of songs that would be great. The pumped up songs. But really, Elijah, have you ever heard of a artist named Toby Mac? I don't know if you've heard of him or not.
DJ Smiles has not heard of Toby Mac. Well, what do you think?
All right, Toby Mac is a Christian artist, and he has a song called "Steal My Show." Right.
Okay.
A lot of that is about kind of it's not about him, it's about him, right?
Yes.
So what I would say is that would be a perfect song for me. It's like, because everything I do is for his glory, and nothing that I've accomplished in this life is due to me and me alone. So that would be it right there.
Hey, you just gave me goosebumps. I just came from the national championship game in Georgia. My Buckeyes won, and after the game's over, the players get to the stage, and immediately, the first thing that said this would not be possible for the man above. And I love that you have a Christian background, and you're just so amazing, and you carry yourself out throughout life like that. So I love the walk-on song. That was the first. I'm sure it won't be the last. Can you let everybody know, who are they listening to, right? Who is my guest in the show today? Who's Jason Brown? Can you give us like a overview of your background, number of years, where you've been, and kind of what you did with, Oak and banking, etc.? Give everybody a background of what makes you ultimately qualified to take these people to the finish line.
Absolutely. But let me start from, the beginning, right? I would say I'm one of those, I'm one of those unicorns in the fact that I'm a native Atlantan, and you never see native Atlantans because it's such a transient city, right? So I was born and raised in Atlanta, to an extraordinary mother and father. I was the youngest of three children, so I was the baby of the family, right? So I always watched my brother and sister, and most of the time I watched them and said, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm following their path. I hope they're not going to be watching this, because in some cases it was, all right, this is what not to do, right? But incredible family that I grew up with. I grew up in the sort of the Catholic background, went to Catholic parochial school, Catholic high school, Marist in Atlanta. But 29 years ago, I met this beautiful Southern Baptist woman, right? And and we decided to split the difference. And ever since, we've been Methodist Wesleyan. So, but I'm also, hey, you'll love this. I'm also a girl dad. So I have, I'm very, very proud of my 3 daughters. They keep me grounded, so to speak. And from an educational background, I went to University of Georgia. Go Bulldogs! I hope you're Buckeye. We have no clashing there.
We just came into the big stadium and won the Natty, so I stood in a good spot.
Not worthy, my friend. Not worthy. I'm taking a back seat to that. So I graduated from the Terry College of Business at UGA. Also got my MBA while I was actually working and going to school at night. I got my MBA from Georgia State University with a concentration in real estate. So that's my educational background. From a work background, I spent about 23 years in the banking business, in the banking industry, underwriting commercial businesses and commercial real estate. It was a great experience, kind of understanding and mitigating risk on the debt side, debt capital equation. But roughly about a decade ago, I left banking to join a private equity firm based in Atlanta called Fordham Holdings, and learned a tremendous amount as it relates to the equity side of things. So you go from understanding the debt side to understanding the equity side, and the impact that internal rate of return and multiple invested capital can have on an investment. It has been a wonderful experience. Now, Fordham owns multitude of businesses underneath its umbrella, one of which is a dental support organization called Oak Dental Partners. Originally, it was named Children and Teen Dental. It's primarily pediatric, but now we've grown it from a GP perspective, and I've been the managing director of that since our acquisition of that, and all of those aspects have made it very unique for me to be able to provide my clients a unique perspective, both from an owner as part of Oak Dental Partners, from an equity investor, as well as from a debt perspective as well. So this has really provided my clients at Dental Pitch Brokerage a wonderful sort of view of their practice and how it interacts with the landscape of the community.
That's awesome. And what else is the private equity firm own? As far as you're in car wash business. How many offices is there? Where'd you start at? Give us a background on even specifically. I think you guys started with like 20 locations, right?
Absolutely. So for the first question, we're involved in multitude of businesses, industrial development of Class A logistics centers, single-family residential development, both from a horizontal development perspective as well as a home building perspective. We also have, as you mentioned, a Marischine car wash. We have a litany of businesses, but if we're talking specifically about Oak Dental Partners, we purchased Oak Dental Partners back in March of 2021, and we grew it from 4 states to 9 states, from 21 locations to now almost 72 locations. I think it's 72 locations, so 71 or 72. And we've grown it from 7 million of EBITDA now to 23 million of EBITDA, and we've had a tremendous amount of success. Also learned a lot along the way, which of course helps me in my perspective when I'm working with my clients at Dental Pitch Brokerage.
And I think it's really interesting. First off, I have all the respect in the world for all the other brokerage firms out there. Really, that's something that's very important to understand. But at the end of the day, you've got a chance personally to work with many different brokerage firms while going from 20 to 71. And really, you've helped to figure out what works the best. What do you like? What don't you like? And I think that adds a tremendous value to people that you're serving with Dental Pitch Brokerage, because you've worked with, I don't know, how many brokers have you worked with? Local, national? How many do you think in total?
Yeah, it's hard to grasp because I've had a lot of interactions with multitude of them. Probably about, let's say, certainly less than a dozen. I think we've sort of limited our scope, and a lot of it is developing relationships with people that you trust and you have confidence in, that they have the certain level of acumen to be able to get you across the goal line. But it's not just acumen, as you know. It's a lot of it is about relationships, and relationships is the foundation of relationships is trust, right? So that honestly was part of the reason why we got into the business, is because we feel like we can create and establish a really strong level of trust in the community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So it's great to know all of the background, and people are like, hey, who's this dental DJ and dental hygienist that all of a sudden popped up with a brokerage firm? And I'm going to tell you, it's way more than me. I got a powerhouse team behind me, and Jason's one of the ones that are right there at the front. So can you tell for the dentists out there that are watching this, can you tell that the dentist the first step that they should take when they're thinking about selling their practice, step number one?
Yeah. Elijah, I think the foundation of it is it starts with a lot of introspective work, right? And what do I mean by that? I mean, each dentist needs to determine their personal, professional, and financial objectives, right? They got to ask themselves the tough questions. And what do I mean by that? I mean, is your mindset truly ready to shift from where you controlling everything and you basically are making all of the decisions across the board on every aspect of it? Well, a sole proprietor approach and an entrepreneur approach to one of partnership and collaboration, right? Are you ready for that? The other thing is are you ready to retire? Are you ready to to slow down and reduce your hours? Or do you just need assistance with the non-clinical aspects of it so you can really pour yourself into what you truly love to do, which is the clinical side, and you just need support and you're just off to the races? So a lot of this is determining those answers internally, before you are taking that step about, selling your practice. I would discuss your thoughts and, discuss your thoughts with your family, your professional advisors before making any irrevocable decisions. But I will say that for the preponderance of the DSOs and other dentists who are buying out there, it's really meaningful for a lot of our clients to develop a cultural fit and a relationship with experienced allies who have specific expertise in certain areas in the non-clinical side, and even the clinical side, where they have a robust, continuing education program where, let's say for instance, multiple DSOs that can help teach a dentist to go into implant dentistry or other areas, right? So the main thing is can you increase, does this cultural fit in this next step allow you to increase your quality of life while also allowing you to improve your financial security? If the answer to those is yes, then I think it's time, right?
That's awesome. And I wanted to hone in on something you said. The group or the organization that you join, what are they doing to continue to evolve you as an individual? And there are things, and I was to give a big shout out to Norris Medical. Norris Medical is a educational company as well as an implant company that does the zygomatic implants. And one of their biggest things is they partner with specific groups throughout the country to ultimately give all of their dentists the ability to be able to do some advanced dentistry things like these specific implants. For some patients, they're not a good fit for traditional implants because there's not enough bone. Well, they're basically going into different groups and they're educating them on how do you do the hard stuff that people just don't know how to do, but they have an entire curriculum. So I believe that I think it's amazing that there are groups out there that have educational programs to take your clinical education to the next level. And you have all of these, practices out there. You have the dentist is doing everything. They're hiring, they're firing, all of the HR, all of the billing, all of the headaches, the marketing, to then say, you know what, I can release all my time for that and focus on just practicing dentistry and being the best clinician. So groups that support education, I absolutely love. I absolutely love it.
I agree.
What is your role in helping dentists sell their practices? How do you support them through the entire process after they've signed on? What is your role after they've signed? What are you doing for them?
Yeah, what I'd say is The ultimate goal is to serve. Okay. And I want to make sure that I'm establishing that. The role that I am in primarily is to provide my client with the best possible outcome. Okay. That outcome is both short term in nature and long term. So I am looking out for the short and long term aspirations of my client. And that starts with providing our dentist with a realistic value of their practice. So how do we do that? We do that through what I'd classify as an LQE, which is a term for a quality of earnings light. But it also entails providing my clients with an understanding of the potential transaction from a buyer's perspective. What do I mean by that? I mean that collectively, we need to understand the risk factors on both the seller side and the buyer side. If we can do that, then it increases the likelihood of a win-win mentality, right? For both sides, which is in the best interest of our dentist, because especially if they elect to roll over some of their money at the holding company level or maintain a JV partnership with the buyer, because then our dentist would get a second bite of the apple potentially down the road, right?
I gotta stop you right there. Second bite of the apple. For some people that don't really understand, like, what is it whenever I roll money into a holding company? What is it whenever I have a JV situation? I hold on to some of my equity. What does a second bite of the apple mean for the people that don't know?
Well, some buyers do a JV structure, a joint venture structure, right? And what that entails is that some ownership, minority ownership, is held back by the dentist, right? And if you imagine if you're maintaining a certain level of ownership and you're allowing somebody to come in and help out with the non-clinical aspects, or taking advantage of higher reimbursement rates, lower cost of supplies, then your EBITDA is going to continue to grow, which means your distributions, the money that you receive, is going to increase, whether it's on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis, depending on the buyer. But you still are maintaining ownership, a percentage ownership in your practice. When a buyer comes in, a specific DSO buyer, for instance, comes in, they're aggregating multitude of practices, and as they grow and they get better, the multiple that they're receiving, the value that they would receive upon a recapitalization, increases. And a lot of times the dentist will be able to take advantage of that. So when a recap occurs, they get to sell a portion of their minority interest. And so they'll get a little bit of money up front upon a closing, and they'll also get the benefit of additional capital down the road, the second bite of the apple, when a recap occurs.
Thank you for explaining that, Jason. I kind of interrupted you and brought you to, hey, wait a sec. What is the second bite? So essentially, what are you doing? So, once you've handed them off, you've got a quality of earnings light. Can you explain kind of what you're doing after you have that quality of earnings, and a quick version on what is a quality of earnings light so people actually know what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be able to do that. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this point too. We're calling balls and strikes related to the financials for each dental practice in an attempt to eliminate games on both sides. So we're just trying to be as real as possible. Part of how we can do that is we utilize that LQE, that sell side quality of earnings light. What that entails, for the most part, I don't want to necessarily go too granular on it, but what it does is it pulls together financials and determines what your trailing 12-month adjusted EBITDA is, the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. That number is what is going to determine your value, right? Now, I can get into that, later if you wish, but that's part of what we do. But what we're trying to do is we're a guide, and we're walking our seller through the process, all the pitfalls from signing the representation agreement all the way to closing. So that means we're evaluating the value of the business. We're identifying specific and prospective buyers. We're creating due diligence in the legal documentation. We're initiating the purchase price proposal, negotiating the details. We're coordinating closing activities through a series of scheduled calls all the way to close, and then we're finalizing the sale and purchase agreement. So that's kind of what we do as a 30,000 feet in the air snapshot.
That's awesome. And I think it's important to understand the difference of what we're doing compared to other firms. And as I said before, I respect them, nothing but love, but we are absolutely disrupting the entire brokerage space. And at these events that we're having and that we're hosting, you actually get to meet the buyers that you may be working with for another 3, 4, 5+ years. You're getting to meet them right away, not 50% down the line, 75% down the line, because a lot of people are focused just on the numbers and just in the data. I believe, look, I'm a dental hygienist myself. I was once a consultant. I understand there is way more to it than the data, as far as the math, the numbers. The culture has to be a fit. How you're doing your day-to-day operations is so important, and to be able to get to meet them early it streamlines it. It makes it fast, and you're not wasting your time. And I believe, Jason, after they sign the representation agreement with us, you're introducing them pretty quickly to potential buyers, because we have 55+ buyers. But can you tell us about that? So they sign, and then they when do they get to meet people?
Yeah, it depends on whether or not they meet through an event, or whether or not this is outside of the event, right? So if it's outside of the event, sometimes we try and complete the LQE prior to making it, and pull together a tear sheet or a executive summary, which would be a SIM, a confidential information memorandum. Sometimes we pull all that together before we make the introductions, but oftentimes, if we've got a very interested buyer, we'll go ahead and establish an introductory virtual meeting. If we actually have on-site events, something along those lines, they'll meet them the same day, Elijah. So they'll get to present in front of these various buyers, and then we'll set aside immediately after the presentation, we'll set aside time where they get to introduce themselves and vice versa to the buying groups that are interested.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for everybody listening. Some people are like, oh my God, I got stage fright. First off, there's only 10 buyers in each of these rooms. It's confidential. There is a fun walk-on song, and either myself or my business partner, Matt Ornstein, are interviewing you, asking you questions that are very easy from the stage. A question is like, tell us about, how you became the dentist you are today. Why are you interested in selling at this point? How's your culture? What type of marketing? There's no financial questions that are asked for you. Now, it's not for everybody. And I can tell you right now, I'd say it's probably about a 50-50. 50% are all about doing an event. 50% don't want to do an event. So just don't freak out like, oh my gosh, that sounds so scary. I can't see him being in front of crowds. First off, it's not a crowd. It's a small group of people, and it's in a confidential setting. It's an extremely fun environment. It's a laid back environment. And it's been awesome doing many of these. And we also have events that are coming up, both at the Dykema Dental Conference, and on top of Dykema, we have an event that's coming up, Florida Dental Association booked for these events. So anyhow, next question is Jason, can you tell us what are the key financial documents a dentist needs to gather before selling their practice?
Okay. Well, to make it easy on the dentist, what we do is we provide them it's pretty comprehensive due diligence list, Elijah, and it breaks it down exactly item by item what we need to do our proper due diligence on their practice. But a couple of items that I'll throw out there are you really need 2 years plus trailing 12 months, so the most recent 12 months of profit and loss statements. You really need, for the most current period, you need a balance sheet, and we get all of these documents uploaded directly to a data room. So it makes it really easy for the dentist to be able to provide that data. The additional items are a general ledger for the same period. So why do we ask for a general ledger? Because we want to be able to go through during the LQE process. We want to be able to go through item by item to see what is discretionary, what is personal in nature, what's non-recurring in nature, so we can add that back to EBITDA, so it boosts EBITDA. There are items that are non-financial in nature, meaning they're not accounting in nature, but they're more practice management software reporting in nature, and that would be a procedure code analysis report, a production and collection by provider report, an accounts receivable aging report, or an active patient report. So we will get those from the practice management software. All of these things help us determine the payer mix, the provider mix, the production mix, and determine the risk factors in a practice, and that helps us out when we're going through the process, Elijah.
Thank you. How do you help dentists to understand the value of their practice?
Well, we touched on that a little bit, right? We touched on, first of all, we're engaging an LQE, a quality of earnings light. We actually, right now, we're utilizing 3 groups: Clifton Larson Allen, CLA, that's one of them. Tower Financials, another one, and Bright Balance. So we're completing again a sell side quality of earnings light. And what does this do? This helps us determine, as I mentioned before, it helps us determine the trailing 12 months adjusted EBITDA. Now, we're also looking at the previous 2 years adjusted EBITDA, look at trends, but that trailing 12-month adjusted EBITDA is the sort of the backbone of the value creation, right? And you're taking that EBITDA and you're multiplying it by an EBITDA multiple to create a value conclusion. Let's use an example. So if there's $1 million worth of EBITDA and you're using a 6x multiple, that's a $6 million value of a practice, right? So the veracity of this value, that $6 million, is also double checked by a percentage of collections, right? So if that $6 million is, let's just say, 125% of collections, then that kind of meets the sniff test. If it's above that, then you need to look at other areas of that to kind of determine whether or not that value is on point or not. A lot of this is more art than science, truth be told, but that EBITDA multiple is really it's derived by similar sales, so comparative sales that have happened within the same geographic location and a similar practice in terms of the number of ops and growth opportunities, organic growth opportunities. Really, what it does, it's a risk factor multiple, and that's kind of how value is created. Does that answer your question?
That does answer the question. Thank you. And for those of you who did not watch I believe it was episode 2, we actually had the co-founder, Matt Ornstein, explaining what EBITDA is and valuing a practice. So you could go back and listen to that one as well. And also we have he wrote the EBITDA handbook, Matt Ornstein. It is available on Amazon. All the proceeds go to the college kids, dental students, etc. Or you can download the free version right on our website, dentalpitchbrokerage.com, and download the EBITDA handbook. But yes, that answered the question. There's a couple more questions before we jump off of here. What's a piece of advice that you would give to a dentist who is hesitant about selling their practice?
That's a great question, man. First of all, we're really mindful that a selling dentist their practice is like their own baby. It's their child, right? And all the blood, sweat, and tears that they put in to create it and help grow it to what it is today, we're mindful of that. And change is not easy for anybody, right? So we're very mindful of that. And the advice that I would give is that, we've got relationships with plenty of buyers who really would, we use the word cultural fit, but would be really good from a relationship perspective to help take your practice to a whole nother level. A lot of this really depends on that connection, whether there is the clinical philosophies are aligned, and really how do you feel? Because this is about relationships. It's a marriage, right? Of sorts.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I will also say this about being hesitant to sell. If you're even thinking about selling, and this is the way I look at it, if you're thinking about selling right now, you're definitely going to be thinking about selling or being done in 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. So if you're thinking about selling, I think the thing that makes the most sense is ultimately, yes, selling. However, working with, and it doesn't even have to be us, it could be any brokerage firm, working with a partner that will show you what your actual EBITDA is, what your margin is, to see if you are actually ready to sell. Because there are times when you have a low margin, like at 8% or, below 20. 20 is, I would say, the average. It can go higher. But, if you're at 8%, probably not time to sell the practice yet, but at least know all of the knowledge, know your data. If you understand the data, you understand essentially the numbers, you'll know if you're ready, but you got to at least take the first step and figure out what the numbers are and find the right person. Last question, then we're going to go ahead and end it, Jason. What is the number one most rewarding part of helping dentists through this process for you?
Now, that's an easy one, man, because really the greatest reward you can have is witnessing sort of the positive impact that a sale is having on a dentist's life. It's relieving the pressures of having to manage the organization. It is relieving their pressures from a financial perspective. It is removing all the non-clinical headaches. We had a sale recently. I believe you interviewed Dr. Soule. The smile, the sheer joy the day of closing that he had just warmed my heart, and I mean that. I mean, that's what we do this for, Elijah, is to generate those smiles. You're DJ Smiles, right? We're about smiles, and that's the greatest gratification I could ever ask for.
And whenever I'm DJing, I've got my head on to something like this. And that is the reason why we've incorporated the walk-on song into the sale. I'm all about fun, enjoying the process. This should be a fun process that everybody enjoys, and you now have a partner like Jason to take you through and hold your hand through the entire process. For those of you who have listened to all the podcasts so far, thank you. I will tell you, we have an amazing podcast coming up next. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And Jason, any last words before we close it out?
No, man, I'm just thankful. I'm just thankful for the opportunity to serve others, and I'm thankful to be working with you, my friend.
Thank you. And then we'll see everybody in the next episode. Bye-bye.